and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our God, this morning we are in your presence with hearts full of thanksgiving because of taking care of each and every one of us throughout the night. Thank you for the gift of life and this new day. It is an opportunity to continue serving our country and the world at large. Dear Lord, this morning we'd like to invite your presence because the Bible says that unless you build the house, the builders will labor in vain. We invite you to be with us throughout the day as we engage during this fourth day of the Educational Assessment Symposium. And we pray this in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Madam Caroline. At this juncture, it's important for us to get to remember what we did yesterday so that we can connect to today's presentations. So allow me invite Mr. Njuguna to give a recap of yesterday. Mr. Njuguna, you're welcome.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you, delegates and participants and my fellow colleagues. Today we are in day 4. And yesterday, day 3, where the sub-theme was secure, valid, and technology-enabled digital assessment. We were able to have several interactions and presentations. The first one was from Joseph Githinji, Deputy Director, Research and Quality Assurance. The second presentation was from Mumbe Mwangangi from Nyasapo AI. And the title was Making Every Learner Visible Through AI-Powered Assessments. There were several key messages that AI enables real-time assessment, instant feedback, and learner tracking. AI tools convert assessment data into actionable classroom insights. The takeaways: AI transforms assessment into continuous, data-driven learning support, not just evaluation. There's also urgent need to scale up real-time feedback systems to improve literacy and numeracy. There was a presentation from Dr. Faith Gishovi and Mr. Kaberia from Meru TTC, titled Leveraging Open Source Platforms to Advance Secure and Ethical E-Assessment. They highlighted several open sources, modules that can be used that offer cost-effective solutions on e-assessment. There are some challenges which they noted: infrastructure gaps, low digital skills, limited exposure. Successes depend on training, infrastructure, and internal institutional adoption. Take home: institutional readiness is critical for e-assessment. It has to be done internally before you see any visible solutions taking place. Open source platforms are viable, scalable solutions for digital assessments in resource-constrained settings. The next one was from Gravity Resource Center, Leveraging AI in Competency-Based Learning and Assessment, from Mr. Duncan Aremi. AI supports personalized, inclusive, and adaptive learning, enables self-assessment, gamification, and voice-based authentication, enhances practical problem-solving approaches in CBC. Takeaways: AI will redefine assessment as interactive, personalized, and secure. It is also a key driver for authentic assessment and reduced malpractice. Dr. Njoroge Mungai from the Ministry of Education took us through a presentation titled Enhancing Assessment Hubs Through Quality Assurance and Standards. The takeaways: quality assurance systems must evolve along digital assessment. Emphasis should shift to continuous and formative assessment models. A presentation that was done by Mr. Ahmed Mutanga, Moses Kataka, and Francis Lekupe from NEC where they were launching the KCSE verification of certificates using a QR code. Take homes, digital verification systems are essential for credibility and trust in national assessments. Technology will be the future in safeguarding the integrity of certificate systems. The next presentation from Joseph Mbugwa, preparing learners to thrive in a changing world. There is need for balanced integration of skills, knowledge, and technology, which is essential. Education must prepare learners for uncertain and dynamic futures. A test case study from NFER was running alongside the presentations, which was on assessment development. The speakers were Anne Gatia, Scholastica Mundi, and Joseph Migwi from NEC. They presented some modules on test design, item development, and assessment processes. The emphasis was on alternative assessment methods and data-driven reporting. Take home, strong assessment design capacity is foundational to quality competency-based assessment implementation. There were 4 panels actually yesterday. And the panels, generally, what was the take-home messages? 1, human validation is essential for AI outputs. There is need for strong cybersecurity, data protection, and governance frameworks. Under digital assessment and curriculum delivery, technology is an enabler, not a substitute for teaching. And therefore, teacher capacity and confidence must be strengthened. Financial literacy and entrepreneurship as another area. The takeaways, digital assessment can simulate real-life financial decision-making. Financial literacy should be integrated across all levels of education. Another item which came out was use of assessment data. Data must be interpreted and used for intervention, not just reporting. And integrated learner profiles combining multiple assessment sources are essential. What are some of the takeaways for day 3? Digital and AI-driven assessment is inevitable and transformative. Institutional readiness, infrastructure, and capacity building are critical success factors. Assessment must shift from high-stakes exam to continuous formative and competency-based approaches. Data analytics and real-time feedback are central to improving learning outcomes. Strong emphasis on ethics, security, and data protection in digital assessment ecosystems are critical. Multi-stakeholder collaboration is essential for sustainable implementation. So I welcome you to day 4, and thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning. Maswai tunakuongojea.
Not a decision maker, and human. The key takeaway, AI is a thinking partner, not a decision maker, and human oversight remains essential.
Presentations that we have received have been very, very enlightening.
Misa inayoka yatupa manga wa pei hii datu wodoa kawamu tulia nkandao kwa akili na adabu, nikipute kutambua, sikuamini haraka.
The use of artificial intelligence in enhancing curriculum.
Experience at the symposium today has been really enlightening, especially looking at different aspects and challenges and lessons learned having to do with innovations in assessment.
The CEO, UNEP, did indicate that a symposium must have dancing and drinking. After the dance by the students, then we can go and do some drinking of tea.
I've found the symposium very enlightening, and we have gained a lot of insights on AI and its use in the Kenyan education system and also around other countries. We've learned a lot, and we've also got a chance to network with other people so that we can learn as a country on how to also implement the AI systems they're using in their countries. And
in Kenya, people are very hospitable. They have accepted us, and we are very much enjoy the program.
To join us in this third annual National Assessment Symposium.
Yes, before we invite the next speaker, it's a thrill to be back. Yesterday I was away, I was missing in action deliberately because you have realized we had Mr. Isaac, a Gen Z, who is a solution provider for this sector, whom I'm sure truly impressed in what he shared yesterday, but we'll have more of him. But also one of the significant insights from yesterday, all of them were very significant, was Dr. Faith and Mr. Kaberia from Mero Teachers College, combined with the insights of Mr. Duncan Arimi. You remember the story of the flying mouse of the teacher? That is the thrust of our dialogue. What he raised yesterday was not a laughing matter. What he raised yesterday was a very significant policy concern in helping our rural teachers to demystify the place of technology. If our teachers are struggling with a mouse, how can you talk about algorithms to them? How can you talk to them about generative AI? So, one of the key elements that is envisaged as an outcome of this symposium, according to the chair, there's a great man called Samuel Mambura. I don't know if you have met him. He's a covert operator. He likes operating from the back. So, but one thing he tells me, and I think which Ambassador also told me, is for us to have a future-ready education. How are we prepared for the future? Which means where to begin, the thrust of our engagement will be in equipping our teachers with requisite skills, expertise, values, and attitude for this dynamic future. The key mantra to this is first we have to empower our teachers beyond the surprise and the shock of the mouse, for them to create models, generative models rooted in AI that not only helps in teaching, but also prepares our young people for the future of work. Two, in the process to transform. So in Kenya, the CB's implementation mission is to build an inclusive, AI-ready education system, and our mantra is, educate today, transform tomorrow. So that next year when we meet in such symposium, we'll have shifted gears and we'll be very competitive within the global south and even compete with the global north. So, what is your role as key thinkers for your respective countries or respective spaces where you operate? We expect you to be change drivers who will be leading the revolution. We must evolve from the existing model of schooling into what is more innovative, relevant, effective, and impactful. Over the last few days, including tomorrow, brilliant ideas are being shared, but we need the moral courage and the leadership to execute the same. They say talk is cheap, right? So we must walk the talk. So what are the key elements for such transformation? From the classroom, actually from the policy table to the classroom, to the learner. And as learners exit our system, are they prepared for the future of work? There must be a connection between the transformative educational leadership, both at the policy and the school level, that bears significant impact on student engagement and teacher optimism. Our teachers should be very optimistic about the potential of AI around personalized competency-based education. Personalized because we are all in our unique capabilities different. So we must cater for every learner. The policy strategies within the ministries must demonstrate practical acumen to drive change and make things happen. Finally, I want to quote, I think like Isaac reminded us yesterday, I want to quote Professor Shana Alexander, who's a journalist and also a chain driver, and says, the sad truth is that excellence makes people nervous. So from here, we expect you to raise the bar, and wherever you go back, make your colleagues to be nervous, make them to be jealous, but also it's a test of your leadership to transmit whatever you have learned from this symposium to drive change in your respective ecosystems. So there was a presentation before the minister came in Tuesday, and we had to stop them. And we stopped them actually when the minister was almost approaching. There's a very brilliant presentation by NEC, Jonathan Muramba and the other colleague. Yes. What they did, they showed us the power of information technology in an era of AI to create a proactive system that can predict the future based on evidence from the current trends and signals. For example, if you are using your learner outcomes at the lower level and also track them into the higher level of schooling, even to their college level, in mid-level, you will be able to predict what the future trajectory and the career of that child is, right? This is what AI gives us. Not only that, from here I think we need to think broadly within the ecosystems that we operate, that we must inform and empower our grassroots teachers, health practitioners, climate change actors on what best practices globally or regionally looks like. Be able to tap on the potential shared here. All of you, I think you must appreciate the work of the Play Lab Ghana and what Mr. Duncan showed us yesterday. We must empower our teachers to learn, demand for services from our institutions. My friend Isaac and your team, please, after this session, look for a man called Samuel Mambura, who's the director for ARC, so that all those tools you have and the systems that you have worked on, which works with our specific context. For every generated idea that we have, it must be Africa context. It must be contextually framed within the context of our African environment. And we have very rich values to share globally. With those few remarks, Doreen, names are similar. So introduce our next guest.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to invite our next presenter. His name is Victor Karume. We are going to have a hands-on experiential session as he comes up. In this session, just like what we had yesterday, we will have a practical hands-on presentation on artificial intelligence. The presenter will share practical examples on how AI tools can support teaching and learning, including improving feedback, supporting personalized learning, and enhancing learner engagement. This is going to be another interactive session, and we encourage active participation. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you so much. Hello. Am I audible? To the Swahili speakers in the house, I'm Jambo. All right. So first of all, I'm privileged, and it's an honor to be engaging with all these great minds. Thank you so much to NEC and the partners for organizing this. And maybe just to ask you, because this is the first time I'm standing on this side of the table, while engaging with NEC. How many of us harbor some resentment for NEC for what they did to you some time back? Yeah? The D's and the E's, are they? Oh, hate speech, I withdraw. So anyway, my name is Victor Karume. I am a co-founder and the CEO at Elimu XR. And this is an edtech company that leverages immersive learning technologies to improve STEM learning. I'm not so sure. Am I able to be moving the slides myself? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have a background in mechanical engineering. And maybe at this point, I would like to mention that I am more inclined towards practical implementation. I'm not fond of ideas that stay in papers and reports. And that's why at this point, I would also like to communicate that I'll simplify my language and the ideas that I'll be presenting, because the whole idea is to be able to implement these things, all right? So into the next slide. Thank you. I'm also the creator of the award-winning 10-in-1 educational board game called The King's Pyramid. And this one particularly focuses on cognitive development among learners. Because as you understand, education is holistic. It's not just about the curriculum and the syllabus. There's a lot that goes into it, into making a learner successful. All right, that said, first of all, I'd invite you to scan that QR code. There is a very brief product video of what Elimu XR does and how we are able to leverage immersive learning technologies to improve STEM learning. And one of the technologies that we are using, and maybe by the way, I can say that in our name, Elimu XR, for the Swahili speakers, Elimu means education, and XR in that name means extended reality. And that is simply because we are leveraging immersive learning technologies, including 3D animation, to be able to visualize and simulate complex STEM concepts, making them easier for learners to understand. We are also using 3D models so that they can be able to interact with these concepts. They are more tangible to them. We use augmented reality, which allows the learners to project these 3D models using their basic phone cameras and be able to relate with them, manipulate them, and be able to learn more from them. And then we have an element of AI, which actually allows them to query more on what they have not been able to understand. So I'll give you a minute to be able to watch that clip. It's a very brief clip. Again, as you watch that, the whole idea is to make STEM learning more experiential, more visual, more tangible, so that concepts are no longer more abstract to them. They're able to actually understand, because that's actually one of the competencies under the CBE, is that learners have to understand and they have to be able to apply this knowledge. It's not just about what they know. Unlike the 844 system, which usually asked us, what do you know? Yeah. And that encouraged a lot of memorization and reproduction of that knowledge in the context of written answers. Now the CBE is asking, what can you do with what you know? And that means understanding is critical. They have to really internalize these concepts, all right? So I assume that you have been able to review that video. That's pretty much what we do at LMXR. And my audio-visual engineer can take me to the next slide. Okay, good. Now, the sub-theme that we are looking at is authentic and scenario-based pedagogy and assessment in competency-based education. Maybe let me ask a question. How many educators do we have in the house? Teachers? Are the educators? All right, perfect. Maybe I can pose one question to you. Maybe what do you understand by authentic pedagogy? Any volunteer? Authentic pedagogy. As I mentioned, the whole idea is for us to be able to break this down. If we are going to implement these things, then we have to break them down to a level where we really understand what we are talking about and we can actually implement them. So authentic pedagogy. Volunteer? Okay, thank you, thank you. We can have, I've forgotten the name. The lady who has done the prayers for us. Oh, there's a mic there. Thank you.
So authentic means related to real life, so that the learners can relate with it, so that we do not have a situation where, I hope you've seen some memes going around, like you did parts of a grasshopper and they're like, how is it related to what I'm doing today?
Okay, perfect. That's actually perfect. I wouldn't add a word. It's basically learning that mirrors real-world complexities, right? So maybe there was another hand. Maybe the other hand can be able to tell us, what do you understand by scenario-based? Scenario-based.
Good morning, everyone. In my understanding, scenario-based learning is a form of learning where I could use situations like simulations, role-playing, stories, and so forth to make the learning more relatable to the student.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. That's actually totally correct because scenario-based, that's an instructional or assessment strategy where the process is driven by a narrative or a simulated real-world challenge, okay? Okay, thank you so much. Now, maybe you can take me to the next slide. Okay, that's a lot of tiny wording. I can read that for you probably. Now, I'll ask a question at this particular point because we have been talking about AI and not AI and everything, yeah? So how many of us think that that image is AI generated? How many think it is AI? How many think it is a real image of Mama Janet? Be confident enough. I think it's a real image. How many are with me? Okay, that's good. I'll say this actually. There's a report, the State of Media Kenya 2025 report, and they established that over 63% of Kenyans cannot actually differentiate between AI-generated content and real content. And the image you're looking at, that is AI, right? So over 65%, over 63% of us cannot be able to distinguish between real and AI-generated content. At the same point, there was another report, the 2026 Global Digital Report, released by Data Reportal and Meltware, and they established that Kenyans rank number one. They rank first globally in using AI. That is yeah. And that is, they say that over 97.5% of all internet users above the age of 16 actually use one form or the other of AI every month. So we are a nation that actually uses AI more than every other person, but we also cannot be able to distinguish between AI-generated content and real content, right? So that is a scenario we have there. And if I'm able to read that to you, basically Mama Janet is a Mama Mboga. She's trying to set up her her lamp, the bulb which she uses for her lamp, to be able to continue with the Mama Mboga business in the late hours. And you can see that on the other side, the other vendors are really breaking bank. They have customers, and Mama Janet is very frustrated because her setup is not working. Now, this is a scenario that we can actually be able to use in a classroom setup to be able to engage learners. Now, this is scenario-based learning because they have to really connect with what happens out there, right? So maybe I can touch a little bit on that because I am more on the STEM side. Allow me to use this STEM example, all right? So these are physics. It's from the simple electric circuits, and we can have our learners use this to learn, okay? So basically, we have a bulb. I can tell you what the problem is. That bulb or the lamp requires an extra amount of power to be able to work, a higher capacity than the battery can actually be able to supply, okay? So what we have there, we want the learners to be able to troubleshoot. What is wrong with Mama Janet's setup? What is wrong with it, and how can they solve it? So in a lab setup, for the schools that have labs, again, we're going to come to that because the Kenya Basic Educational Statistical Booklet, released by 2020, released by the Ministry of Education, established that only 30% of secondary schools at that time had adequately equipped science labs. So we are going to be looking at what if there is a school that doesn't have these science labs? What can they do to be able maybe to facilitate this kind of scenario-based learning and assessments, okay? So what we want the learners to do there is to troubleshoot what's wrong with the system and maybe be able to solve that particular problem and explain what was wrong and how they solved it, okay? So maybe take me to the next slide. So basically in that setup, that's a simple lab setup. So we are gonna provide the learners with several other bulbs, maybe not so many bulbs, where we have a lower capacity bulb that can actually work with that battery capacity, okay? We are also going to provide them with several other batteries, where one of the batteries will actually have sufficient power to light up that bulb, okay? And then we want them to do all they can. They can, you know, they can change the bulb to see whether the other bulb will work. They can change the battery to see whether the other battery will be able to work. They can close that switch so that now we have a closed circuit and be able to see. And that is what now you see in the second setup, whereby they have been able to solve the problem. Either they were able to replace the bulb, okay, with a bulb that actually works with that power that has been supplied, or they were able to replace the battery and they were able to use a battery that has higher capacity to be able to light that bulb, all right? So basically what we are doing, now the question is, what if you're in a situation where you don't have this equipment, you don't have a lab? Remember when we were rolling out the CBE, the junior secondary schools were actually domiciled into what used to be primary schools. Initially under the 844, primary schools were not designed to have science labs, right? And that means these schools now have to do whatever they can to be able to provide this kind of practical learning, all right? And up to this point, we've just had the first cohort transition to senior secondary school. We do develop content, and I have been able actually to look at the curriculum and what they learn. They are now using microscopes. They are doing a lot of experiments, but very few schools have been able to equip themselves with this equipment. Maybe for the private schools, they can move much faster because the director can just wake up the following morning and say, I'm pulling 2 million bobs from the bank and we are having that science kit, right? But for the public schools, they actually have to wait, right? At the start of 2025, the government promised that they will be building a science lab in every primary school to be able to serve the junior secondary schools. But again, that will take time, right? And that means a lot of learners have transitioned to senior secondary, having missed a lot of this kind of practical learning. So the question is, while we were doing market research, actually, we visited SEPU, the School Equipment Production Unit, which is responsible for equipping the labs across the country. And a science kit required for the JSS was costing 1 million bobs, 1 million Kenyan shillings. And so the question was, how many schools, public schools, are able with their current funding to acquire these kits and use them for practical learning, right? So only a few of them can be able to move with that speed. That means it will take time, right? So what can we do if we don't have a lab that can actually allow us to use these kind of scenarios? If you have a lab, you have the capacity to do that. But even with a lab, assume you're using chemicals, maybe for chemistry practicals, how often can you be able to use these chemicals and everything? Because they get depleted. You have to keep replacing. How can you actually keep up with that if you have actually to implement scenario-based learning? That takes me to the next slide, which allows us to use virtual setups, virtual experiments. What you're looking at is PhET simulations. Anybody familiar with PhET simulations? Great. And I'm not here to market PhET simulations. All I'm saying is that research has been done. There are tools that have already been developed. Actually, at XR, we are also integrating these tools in addition to what we are providing ourselves. And why reinvent the wheel? When technology is out there and it can allow us to be able to offer this kind of experiential learning, scenario-based learning at almost zero cost. Let me call it zero cost. Now, the same statistical, the basic education statistical booklet established that over 40% of the primary schools, now remember, the junior secondary schools are stationed at the primary schools, yeah? Over 40% of these schools have computer labs, all right? So we have the ICT integration into those schools. Maybe we just need to figure out the internet and all that. What is stopping us from using such tools when they can actually substitute the actual labs, all right? So we can be able to use the resources that we have, and more so, we can be able to push for ICT integration and use tools like these to be able to allow learners to actually, I did the same setup we have done. Maybe take me to the next slide. That is the same setup that we have just done with the actual lab equipment. Now, in this case, I did the same, but this time using the virtual labs. I was able to recreate the same non-functional circuit, the same faulty circuit, and I was able to do all that kind of maneuvering, changing the bulbs, changing the batteries, to see what actually works. And that means we have achieved the same, whether we use the actual lab or we use the virtual lab, right? Okay, now, what do we achieve by using these scenario-based learning? Number one, the kind of skills that we are getting is that these scenarios, and especially when they are localized, when they are brought down to our level. For instance, when you're teaching mathematics, there is a point there at a particular grade you'll introduce the integers. At a particular grade you're going to introduce the proper fractions, and then the mixed fractions, and then the improper fractions, right? And that means that we really have to contextualize this kind of setup to be able to generate what we want. We do not want maybe a setup that is going beyond what the learners have been able to learn, yeah? So these scenarios, especially when localized, they facilitate relevance, a cultural buy-in, and relatability of the concept to the Kenyan student. That's actually what they do. Secondly, for instance, the non-functional circuit that I provided there, it encouraged critical thinking, right? And the scientific method through failure, they were able to troubleshoot what was failing and able maybe to design solutions around that. And thirdly, the diverse equipment that was provided. Remember, we provided several bulbs and several batteries, so they could be able maybe to play around with them and see what works, right? And that allowed for iterative testing and hands-on discovery. They had to do all that on their own, right? So, and lastly, the high rating bulb acted as an extension task. The students can explain why a good battery could not power the bulb. And remember, maybe if this group of students solved the situation by replacing the high power bulb with the low power bulb, they will then be able to tell us, will that bulb, the low power bulb, provide sufficient light for Mama Janet? Maybe Mama Janet was going for the practicality bit of it. She wanted the high power rating bulb to be able to light up the whole setup, okay? So that said, maybe you can take me to the next slide. Good. And this is AI, pedagogy and assessments. And the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, because we have established that we did not create AI in Kenya, But again, we have been crucial to training these AI models. And a major problem with that is that now AI speaks like Kenyans. Actually, at some point, I did a whole report on my own, an article, and then I tested it for AI index, and it flagged me with 40% of the AI index. It said I had used AI, while in reality, I had not actually utilized AI. And this is because companies like, OpenAI, Google, Meta, they normally outsource from Kenya, Philippines. There are particular markets that they outsource for the training of their AI models. So we have again to ask ourselves, where do we lie in terms of AI? First of all, we did not create it, but we are very good at using it. And that means that as an education system, we have now to catch up with the learners because we have a very fast adopters kind of learners. They are quick, they are tech savvy and all that, yeah? So maybe take me to the next slide, because I want to look at what can we be able to do to be able to utilize AI more effectively, in delivering the curriculum and doing the assessments. First of all, we need to ensure that the AI we are using is only referring, the reference point is what we feed it, the data we feed it, the curriculum designs we feed it, right? Maybe the assessments, the next standards, the KICD standards. And that means that we have to integrate a framework called the retrieval augmented generation. And that means that this time round, when a teacher tells AI to create, let's say, an assessment around this area, maybe around this particular topic area, the AI doesn't go to Facebook to fetch for how to create this particular assessment. It does not go to Instagram. It does not just do the whole World Wide Web search. Yeah? It only relies on what is there. What has it been fed with? If it is the curriculum, it will rely on that. If we tell it that the learners are for grade 6, it will not introduce some terms that are supposed to be learned at grade 9. For instance, throughout our primary school, we went through the whole system knowing living and non-living things, right? Then when we got to Form 1, we were told now drop that. Now use living and non-living organisms. So we have now moved from things to organisms. But probably the designers of the curriculum knew well that using the word organism at grade 5 will not work well. So we have to really contextualize these AI models so that they are only able to fetch within the confines that we dictate, all right? So move me to the next slide, please. Good. Now, NEC at this point, any NEC officials, you can close your eyes. So within the audience, if this was you, maybe recently, maybe a few years back, just raise up your hand. If this was you, just be honest. It's a safe space. I can guarantee that. Thank you for the honest. Clap for that lady. So the question then becomes, because at some point, because I completed my degree before AI tools came into play around 2021, yeah? AI mostly came into play around 2020, towards the end of 2022, 2023, right? So lecturers were very comfortable giving you takeaway cards, yeah? Take this takeaway assessment, go with it. Do whatever, and they knew well enough that there was Google, there was YouTube. Why were they not afraid to give you the takeaway cards? Yet you could research, because they knew that for you to be able to complete the assessment, you'll still need to do a lot of research. And we are talking about peer-reviewed research and all that kind of thing, and then be able maybe to relate that to the assessment that you have, right? Now, we have AI with us. Right now, since AI came, no lecturer is comfortable giving away takeaway quizzes. Why? Everybody will score an A, right? So now we need, because AI is here, and AI is not going anywhere, we need to be comfortable living under the same conditions like we did earlier. And mind you, AI will just keep on improving, surpassing what we think we know, right? Surpassing any proctoring methods that you try to put in place. So we need to get to a level of confidence whereby we can, lecturers and teachers can be able to give assessments, takeaway assessments, knowing well enough there is AI, knowing well enough there is every other tool, but still they can be able to assess the learners authentically, all right? So I think this is a question that I'm going to be throwing to you because that's a tricky area. And this is one of the greatest fears, why maybe education systems are, not implementing AI. Because at this point, according to that report that the Media Council of Kenya did, majority of the users said that they use AI for coursework, reports, and everything, right? So we know that learners nowadays are using AI to complete assessments. For those who have maybe done some form of contract writing ni ile kitu mnaita online writing, the online writing thing, you know that at some point, don't pretend you don't know how it works. So at some point, a lot of accounts were closed. A lot of people who had accounts for contract writing or what we call paper mills lost their accounts because there was a lot of AI detection. Yeah, and remember, once AI came and writers started using AI, the other guys developed AI detection tools. All right, then the other guys then created humanized AI tools. Yeah, so you use the AI, then you pass it through a humanizer. Okay, so that now the language sounds more human. So it's a tug of war. No one is winning anytime soon. So we have to know how to live with AI. So maybe as I wind up, because actually that's my very last part of the presentation, maybe I can hear from 2 of you or 3 of you. How do you think we can survive with AI and be comfortable assessing without having to supervise? You know, the other day I learned that even in theology exams, they have to be assessed. Theology exams. They have to be proctored, they have to be assessed. That means trust is not there still. Everybody wants to take the lift, not the staircase. Yeah. So how do you think maybe we can be able to live with AI, with the realities that it has, and still be able to authentically assess learners and be able to know, the authentic learnings, the authentic knowledge they have been able to acquire from what they've been taught? Maybe you can have, how many teachers do we have? There are a lot of teachers. Yes, please, sir. Maybe you can help us with that.
I think it will start with us teachers, then down to the learners. And as we have been told throughout the symposium, it is to make us understand that AI is not helping us to think, but it is a partner. It's like a partner in our thinking. So it is not doing our work. We are doing everything with it. So it is making us understand that.
Thank you, sir. And actually, I don't fear much for teachers. Teachers can actually be able to regulate themselves and use it as an assistive tool. I'm afraid for the learners, because once you give a task to a learner, they'll just go use AI and they'll be able to complete the task and all that, yeah? Okay, thank you. Maybe the final contribution before I end this from another teacher. Thank you, sir. Let's have the mic back there.
Maybe one of the areas where I would think we shall be able to survive with AI is, one, we capacity build ourselves on how to use the AI so that we are able, even if it is a task that you develop using AI, you are developing using the right tools, the right curriculum, the right designs and all that, so that the output will be of a higher degree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that said, remember this is now a two-pronged approach. First of all, we have to push for ICT integration, because if we are going to leverage AI, we need these facilities in those schools, right? And secondly, we need learners now using these tools, because if we are going to have to simplify the work of teachers, we don't want to burden them, feeding data and all that. If I have to personalize an assessment, maybe for student John or student Anne, first of all, their data has to be available within a system, so that AI maybe can be able to check which areas was John struggling in, and maybe it's able to create an assessment. So first of all, ICT integration is key to this. And secondly, now we need now to push the AI. First of all, we have to agree we cannot have a perfect system. We cannot wait until 100% of schools have ICT integration. We need to start with where we are, with the teachers and all that. Again, from the same Kenya Basic Education Statistical Booklet, it was established that 42%, only 42% of teachers have formal ICT training. Yeah, only 42%. But I think that's a good number to start with, to be honest. We can start from there, moving forward. Again, this is data from 2020. A lot probably has changed, and especially because we have been rolling out the CBE, right? So we have to take care of that. Also, about 56% of the teachers indicated that lack of ICT training is what is, is the barrier to them being able to utilize ICT tools and digital tools in their teaching practices. With that, thank you so much, not unless there is a question. Thank you for your audience.
Please, can we clap for him? That was very powerful. You know, the beauty of this symposium, we are getting very significant evidence that young people are helping us shape their future. With such talent, I think our region is on the right pace. So, my colleagues from TSE, where's my friend Charles? My sister Nanaita, and Dr. Esther. So all colleagues from TSC, what this means for us now, in reimagining authentic pedagogy in the area, for example, of literacy as a basic competence in an era of generative AI, how must we prepare our learners to adapt and thrive in the world beyond the classroom? This conversation is about our teachers, and that is where it matters. And we must focus on where it matters. Have we established classrooms that give students globally connected literacy experiences? Myself and others included, we speak English in our mother tongue, right? Sometimes I think in Somalia and speak in English, and that will not be a good teacher, including generative AI. 2, for many of us from the Global South, what is the state of ICT integration in our teaching and learning processes? We might speak all the good English about generative AI here, but let's focus on what is practical. How do school projects aim at establishing an authentic audience beyond school walls? How are our students prepared for more purposeful opportunities to engage with what they learn and create? What is our perception of the 21st century skills in a generative AI? What does pedagogical innovation for children's agency in the classroom mean to our teachers? What does this mean to a teacher in Turkana, for example? Is technology increasing the divide, thus establishing social exclusion? What can teachers do to bridge that gap? How do we share and create authentic scenario-based learning? I'm asking more questions because I'm from the exam council, but you'll help me answer them. In an era of generative AI, how are we motivated as teachers in the classroom? How are we motivated by the idea of elevating our learners' status to be constructors of knowledge? If you listen to our teacher from Meru Teachers College yesterday, he said, we make this learning and teaching and skill transmission for teachers, training colleges, to be more interactive, that they don't go to their Gen Z children to help them. How do we shift that mindset? What is practical about the things that we say, especially in establishing a pedagogy of authentic listening? Do we listen to their teachers? How are we addressing their fears? 2, how are we understanding the childhood challenges within the context of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child? Yes, AI. how are we protecting our children? Within the UN Convention, in terms of privacy and security of our children, in an environment of intrusive technology. Because yesterday we said we are making technology and these tools, adaptive tools, to be our comfort, to be our comforters in terms of stress, right? You go listen to music, and many of us, how many of us were watching what is this platform? This powerful platform, what is it called? I'm not digitally savvy. TikTok. There you go. It. How many of you watch TikTok before they even do their morning prayers? But you see, this is how intrusive technology is. But two, we said we need to equip our children with these skills. But what is the balance? How are we balancing the tension between the self-determination of our children in a very competitive era and ensure they're also protected? That is the paradox we must face. That's the paradox we must attempt to address and harness the power of technology. Thank you very much. Doreen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogle, for those remarks. There is a slight change in the program. We are having Dr. Mutweleli representing the CEO, Mizizi Elimu Africa, Dr. John Mugo. And then there was also a presentation by Dr. Emmanuel Joseph. It is a virtual presentation. We will move it to the next after Dr. Mutweleli's presentation. Then there was a presentation that was to be done yesterday by Catherine Masila Lochomin and Petronila. It will be moved to immediately after tea break. So ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we want to venture more into authentic assessment, a presentation that is very relevant to our discussion today. He's going to present on authentic and scenario-based assessments in competency-based education, and he'll give us an experience from the alive assessment approaches. So allow me introduce Dr. Mutweleli. He is an education assessment specialist with extensive experience in curriculum design, competency-based assessment, and evidence-driven education reform in Africa. He holds a PhD and a Master of Education degree in educational psychology, specifically tests and measurements from Kenyatta University, a Bachelor of Education Arts from Egerton University, and professional certificate in technology-enabled learning from the Commonwealth Assess of Learning. Samuel currently serves as the Manager, Curriculum and Assessment at Mizizi Elimu Africa, formerly Zizi Afrique Foundation, where he works with multidisciplinary teams to advance equitable and transformative education systems that enable children acquire foundational skills in literacy, numeracy, life skills, and values. He previously served as a lecturer in educational psychology and coordinator in charge of examinations at the Digital School of Virtual and Open Learning at Kenyatta University. Samuel has also played a key role in regional competency-based education initiatives, including the ALIVE, that is Active for Life Skills and Values in East Africa program across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, contributing to the development of contextualized assessment tools for life skills and values within the competency-based curriculum framework. His professional interests focus on strengthening innovative and context-responsive assessment systems for 21st century African learners. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together and welcome Dr. Mutweleli. Karibu.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm excited to be here today. My name is Samuel Mutweleli. And all those things you have heard, I don't know whether it is me or somebody else because I've heard so much. but that's me. But before I begin this presentation, let me give the apologies of Dr. John Mugo, my CEO, my current boss, who was also my teacher when I was doing my master's. John Mugo had to travel to Zanzibar yesterday because of an emergency which he needed to attend in Zanzibar. So I kindly receive his apologies. Being my boss, of course, today I was expected to be seated there and take notes as he made the presentation, only to be called and told, now you are the one to come in. So we'll present this together with my colleague, Martin Ariapa, from Luigi Guisani Foundation in Uganda. So we'll do the presentation, then at some point, Martin Ariapa will come in. I want to build from the presentation which has just happened. But before then, let me speak a little bit about Mizizi Elimu Africa, formerly Zizi Afrique Foundation. We are an African-led organization. Our focus is mainly on educational research, and we partner with government institutions to support the strengthening of acquisition of life skills and values among our learners. Our key focus is on foundational skills. And it bothers us when you listen or you read statistics and you realize in sub-Saharan Africa, only 1 out of children finish primary school having acquired foundational skills. And when you talk of foundational skills, we are thinking about foundational literacy, foundational numeracy, as well as life skills and values, or what we call in Kenya the core competencies, that is the Kenyan curriculum, and what we call generic skills in the Ugandan curriculum, and life skills in the Tanzanian curriculum. So when I was seated there, and then one of the teachers responded to the question which was asked, what is the difference between authentic pedagogy, scenario-based pedagogy, and what do you remember? And my attention, it got to my attention when the teacher or whoever responded said, the example of the grasshopper, which we know, which Kenyans in social media, like when they are trying to excite themselves in social media, they say they don't understand why they went to school to learn about the parts of a grasshopper. The abdomen, thorax, which is the other one, popular one, the head. So it got me thinking, what could have assessments done so that Kenyans today, or our children who went to school then, will start to appreciate why that content was very, very relevant. The transition which we are moving from knowledge-based education system to competency-based education system is about acquiring knowledge, and then you go beyond the acquisition of that knowledge to the point of applying that knowledge to solve real-life situations. So it also got me thinking, when you also look at what is happening in social media, and some people will now start saying they apologize because when they were given an opportunity to debate in school, and the debate question was, money is better than education. And then they were saying, no, education is better than money. Then they say, no, I apologize. So when I tie that to this question about the grasshopper, where we come from we have grasshoppers. We were told the parts of a grasshopper. Did we go beyond that to ask ourselves, what is the role of the grasshopper in the ecosystem? And then move from there. For this debate task, give an example. Let the learners, because they have interacted with the grasshoppers in their environment, give them an opportunity. Some of the team in the debate club to support that grasshoppers are actually useful in the environment. The other one to support that grasshoppers are actually destructive in the environment. If those are the kind of engagements we would have engaged our learners on, I'm already in the authentic assessment tasks, and that is one of them. Having tasks which speak to the environment where the learner is operating from. So my presentation basically will focus on the place of authentic assessments in competency-based education. So, like I mentioned, our country is in the transition from competency-based, knowledge-based education to competency-based education, where the shift is from a system which prepares learners for recall to preparing learners to be able to showcase what to do. What are they able to do with that knowledge to be able to be productive citizens? When you look at the curriculum, the one by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, we expect our learners, the moment they exit our education system, to be ethical, empowered, and engaged. That is what we are looking forward to, beyond just recall of information. And what does that one mean? It tells us that even the ways in which we assess should go beyond just asking learners to recall information to the point where they are able to showcase what they are able to do with that information. When I went to school, and even most of us when we went to school, I want to pose this challenge. If you wanted to determine whether someone is able to drive a car, what kind of a question would you give that person? Will you give a multiple choice type of a question for the person to list or to indicate the traffic lights and what they mean? Or would you give them an opportunity to actually try out? You give them a car, and then you give them an opportunity to try out and even see whether they are able to maneuver and make that car move. So when you talk of authentic assessments, and it was said very clearly here, you think of the situation in which the learner is operating on and come up with practical tasks which will lead to practical solutions. And I'll be able to showcase some of those tasks here, and we'll engage in a discussion whether you consider that to be an authentic task, a scenario-based task, or a performance-based task. The presentation which has just happened before I came here was more about what is happening in the laboratories, the virtual labs. My presentation will take you now inside the classroom. So our curriculums are very intentional, that in addition to our learners acquiring subject content knowledge, they also need to acquire 21st century skills. They also need to come out as good problem solvers, good communicators. They should be creative thinkers. But now when it comes to the point of assessment, then there's a critical gap because we tend to go back to now assessing knowledge are not exactly what the intention of the curriculum wants to achieve. So my presentation is about bridging that gap between the intentions of the curriculum and what we actually ought to be assessing. Let's move to the next slide. So we are also in a world where things are changing very rapidly. Have listened to Mukta, my friend Ogle. From day one, he has always made reference to that presentation about use of modeling to predict the kind of career paths or where we can lead our learners based on what has happened throughout. Then I was thinking, I was reflecting. When you look at the statistics, the World Economic Forum, by 2030, 39% of the jobs, the way we know them today, will have changed. So what our friend Ogle and the team are telling us, what currently the guidance and counseling teachers, for example, are doing in our schools, now models are coming to do that. Pathways in choice of careers, does it mean that they have no job moving forward from 2031 and so on? What it means is this teacher, for them to be adaptive, they have also to change with the times. If they remain with the current skills, then they will be relevant moving forward. But if they upgrade their skills and on board the use of AI, the use of technology like that model which was presented here, then they will still remain relevant. So what we are saying basically, to be able to remain relevant and move forward, we also need to be aware of the current skills which the job market or the world of work demands, even the skills which we continue doing assessments the way we were doing them in the era of competence-based education. Assessments have also to adapt to the change. And we are saying assessments should be part of learning and be able to capture this kind of skills, which we are saying now are 21st century skills. When I was looking for jobs, immediately I finished school, the first thing which could not have missed in my application is my academic qualifications, what I've done in school. Today, let me tell you, and moving forward, I'm seeing a situation where we'll have jobs advertised and they will not make reference to the degrees, to the what. They will just make reference to analytical thinking, creative thinking, and creativity, because this is now what we need to survive in the current world of work. So the question we're asking ourselves is, what is that type of assessment which is helping us to go beyond the subject content knowledge and also help us capture these 21st century skills? And the answer which we are proposing and which we have been trying out through the Alive program is the scenario-based assessment tasks. So I've already mentioned that the problem we face and which we are trying to solve is assessments. Traditional assessments have focused on recall, isolate subjects, and when I talk of subject isolation, is where there is a minimum opportunity for transfer of knowledge from one subject to another when it comes to assessment. So the result of this is skills have not been visible when it comes to assessments and learning not being transferable. So the gap we are trying to fill is that we teach competencies, but mostly we tend to assess content. because I'll talk about their life approach and how Alive has contributed to solving the challenge of these competency-based assessments, I'll talk briefly about the Alive initiative. Alive was born in the year 2020. It's the Action for Life Skills and Values in East Africa. It's an initiative or a collaborative project which operates in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and actually it's also going beyond the East African region. And why Alive why this initiative is because around the year 2020, and we agree that is the time our countries were transitioning from knowledge-based education systems to competency-based education systems. So when this one was happening, there were gaps in terms of capacity of people to drive this change, in terms of assessment, in terms of pedagogy, the right pedagogies to promote the nurturing of these core competencies in a classroom. So there was need, because the work was so big, there was need for people to come together. And that's why Alive was born, so that it works together with the government actors, curriculum and assessment institutes to try to find solutions to the challenges which we were facing. So some of the outcomes of this initiative across the region is that we were able to demonstrate that these core competencies, these generic skills, and these life skills and values are actually measurable, and we are partnered with the curriculum and examination bodies to showcase some of the frameworks which guide the measurement and the teaching of these skills. So we have been able to improve the integration of these skills in a classroom situation. So we can move to the next one, the Alive approach. Like I had mentioned, our approach mainly focuses on the use of scenario-based assessments, performance tasks, which are embedded in learning. So we don't look at assessment as the end product of learning. We look at assessment as part of learning. So when you talk of this scenario and authentic assessments, they are actually part of what happens in the classroom. The educationists in the room will talk of assessment for learning, not assessment of learning. So what is this authentic and scenario-based assessments? If somebody wanted to find the difference between the two, for those who have done mathematics or done research, one is a subset of the other. Who wants to say which one is bigger and which one is like a technique within the other one? Anybody? Authentic and scenario-based assessments. If you are to comment, what would you say is the difference between the two? Or how are they related? Anybody who wants to try? We have seen authentic assessments and scenario-based assessments. We can move to the next slide. The next one. Yes, that's where we are. Anybody who wants to try? How are they related? Yes. Just give the mic.
I think the scenario-based learning,
yes,
is a tool of the authentic. It's one of the tools in authentic learning.
Is a tool in one of the techniques within authentic assessments. So authentic assessment is the broader picture, where you are administering an assessment for learners to showcase in a practical way how the skills they have learned can be able to come up with a product to solve a problem within the context in which they operate. The main thing around authentic assessments is the practicability of the use of the skills which you have acquired. And when you look at our education systems, this opportunity presents itself more in areas like community service learning, areas like in agriculture, for example. If we are talking about farming, then you are given an opportunity to come up with a project around growing of maize, growing of vegetables. That's a practical, an authentic project. But now, when it comes to scenario-based assessment, it's one of the main techniques of assessing within authentic assessments. And the previous presenter made reference to this. You mirror, you simulate a situation given the context which the learner is operating on. Remember my example of the grasshopper and where we operate from. Where would you place my debate task? Will you say it's authentic or will you say it's scenario-based? Yes? Of course, all scenario-based tasks are also, also authentic. But the one for the grasshopper, or maybe let me come back to yesterday's presentation about the 6 eggs and how many were left after 2 were broken, 2 were eaten, and 2 were fried. How would you classify that one? Is it scenario-based, authentic? Yes, it's authentic. Why would you call it a scenario-based task? Let me ask that question, because scenario-based tasks, they also contribute to authentic assessments. Why would somebody say that task which we were given yesterday, and this is how it was? Somebody had 6 eggs, 2 were broken, they got broken, 2 were fried, and 2 were eaten. Those were there yesterday. Do you remember that? Then the question is, how many eggs were there after all that? The person who was having the eggs, 2 got broken, 2 were fried, 2 were eaten. So how many eggs do I have? Why would I classify that as a scenario-based assessment task if I were to give it in a classroom? Anybody wants to try? Yes.
Thank you. Maybe we put it in area of arithmetics and numericals. Mm-hmm. And learners interact with eggs probably on daily basis, either by collecting if they are farming or during their service for eating. So when you put it, it's a real life interactions. The learners are able to interact, they break the eggs, they fry, they do a process of eating. So I think that would be more of scenario. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. The reason why it is scenario is because this is something which learners can relate with. And you have not come to class with the 6 eggs, then you have broken the 2, you have fried the 2, and they have eaten the 2. But you have created that scenario which learners can relate with. And what is this scenario helping them to do is to be able to showcase or to nurture problem-solving skills, their critical thinking and creative thinking skills. But that is different from a situation where now these learners are presented with the eggs for sure, and they break them, they fry them, and they eat them. That is more of a performance-based assessment, or a more of what we are calling the authentic, the practical kind of skills. So I've spent some time there to help you differentiate what is this we are calling authentic. The end goal is practical application of the skills with the end goal of helping me to solve my problems within the context which I operate in. But if I'm not able to have that practical exposure, then create a situation around my life, around where I work, around my home, around my school, and come up with a task which will help me think and come up with solutions. Let's go to the slide with an example of authentic assessment task. Whoever is scrolling, you can take us there. The next, yes, that one. I don't know whether you are able to read that, because I wanted you to engage with it and tell me whether you consider that as an authentic assessment task or not. Are you able to read? So let me quickly read for you. And the question is, do you consider this as an authentic assessment task? And remember, with the authentic assessment task, we are saying the main thing is there is a tangible product from whatever the learners will engage in, either the project work, either whatever they will do, there should be a tangible product. So John, a senior 2 student, and the moment you hear senior 2, for Kenyans, I think we are used to grade 1 to grade 10, then Form 1. No, yes, Form 3 and 4 currently. When you hear of senior 2, this is the Ugandan system of education. So these are tasks which we have developed from the work we are doing with our brothers in Uganda. So John, a senior 2 student, began smoking and drinking alcohol to appear cool among peers. Over time, this became habitual and negatively affected his health, leading to persistent coughing, fatigue, and declining well-being. Similar behaviors are common among adolescents in your school community. So these are tasks which has been, these are scenarios which has been given to learners. Then the task is design a youth behavior change campaign to discourage smoking and alcohol use among students in your school. Producing a real communication product, for example, a poster, radio message, or social media script using appropriate communication tools. So when you look at that task, there is the expectation that the learners will come up with a product, a communication strategy on how this problem of smoking and drinking can be solved within the school community. So if you are able to see that task, what you'll observe is these are tasks which was developed to assess creative thinking among students in our schools. So when you critically look at the problem, it is addressing curriculum content knowledge in terms of healthy eating habits, for example, the areas around drug or substance abuse. But the task has also gone ahead and identified the skill, the generic skill or the core competency which is being assessed, and in this case is creative thinking. So we are able to show that part of that task is addressing the sub-skills of creative thinking, where one of them is divergent thinking, where people are thinking differently, not convergent, divergent thinking, because as they come up with these solutions, they will think differently. The way a certain group will present their product is not necessarily the same as the way another group will do it. And that is an example of divergent thinking. And also, the task is also able to measure the extent to which learners are able to express creativity in their thinking. So I want to showcase another example. You can move to the example on scenario-based assessment task. So we classified that example, which I've just shown, as an authentic assessment task because, one, it speaks to the environment where the learners are acting, and it is also expecting them to come up with a tangible product, which is going to help to solve the problem at hand. Now, this next example is an example of a scenario-based assessment task, which both assesses the curriculum content and also the core competencies or the 21st century skills. So, and this is how the task is. The presidents of 3 geographically close countries formed an organization in the year 2002. The headquarters of the organizations were in one of those countries. I think people are already thinking of the East African community. The countries wanted to work together in trade and social service provision, among other areas. The organization experienced challenges that led to its collapse in 2011. So you are giving a scenario, an hypothetical situation about an organization which was formed by 3 countries, and then at some point, it collapsed. And remember, you have taken learners the curriculum content about these organizations in Africa. If it's East Africa community, you talk about the East Africa community. So you make reference to such kind of a scenario. Then some of the tasks which you want these learners to respond to is what questions would you ask to understand why the organization collapsed? When I went to school, maybe me and you, probably we would have been taught, would have been asked, what is this kind of organization? Then you say it's the East African community. Then you say the factors which led to the collapse of the East African community. Then you just repeat them the way you were taught. But here's a situation where we are targeting to measure curriculum content as well as the skill of problem solving. And we know among the sub-skills of problem solving is the sub-skill of asking questions. So that's why the first question in the first task we are giving the learners here is for them to tell us what questions would you ask to understand why the organization collapsed. Because for you to be able to solve a problem, you also need to ask why. So if you are a learner in this classroom, how would you respond to this question? What questions would you ask to understand why the organization collapsed? Before you even go to answering the questions, what kind of questions would be going through your mind before you even respond? Anybody who wants to try? What kind of questions would go through your mind before you even ask? Anybody? Oh, 5 minutes. Oh, okay. Sorry, then there is... so basically what we are saying in these scenario-based assessments, they are key. They are solution, part of the solution to coming up with assessment tasks which capture both curriculum content as well as the 21st century skills, which our curriculums are quite intentional to help learners to develop. So the next step is where we'll take you through about the rigor of their life assessments, how we determine the reliability and validity of these assessments. Because if you can't have a valid and reliable measure, then even what we are trying to do to make use of that assessment data to improve instruction, to inform instruction and improve learning, it won't happen if the data we collect is not valid and reliable. So I'll invite my colleague Martin Ariapa now to take us from there on how we make sense of their life data. So we can move the slide to making sense of the assessment data, their life approach. Yeah, that one.
I won't talk so much like Dr. Samuel because I'm mindful of time. I just wanted to show you just an example of how we make sense of the data that we collect from the work that Samuel has shared with us. We all appreciate the fact that reporting proficiencies in skills such as generic skills for the case of Uganda or core competencies for the case of Kenya, life skills in Tanzania is a complex thing. It's not straightforward. It's not like how you would report achievement in mathematics or literacy, for example. So the approach that we take as Alive is to try to describe what the young people, the students, are able to do or demonstrate, drawing from the examples that Samuel has given. But one piece that he hasn't given that is very important for us is the scoring rubric. Our scoring rubrics to be able to help us report on skill acquisition are descriptive in nature, so that we are able now to describe what the young person is able to do, to say, to write, as per the question that have been asked to them. You can take on to the next slide. We, just a simple diagram, just one of it, not all that we use, is this map that many of us here are familiar with, that brings together the item and the person or the student in the same map. And this map, as one of the products, is helpful for us because it helps us to see the spread of the items that were put in our assessment pack, but most importantly is where we put in categories for us to be able to describe at this level. For example, down there, if you see those bars, what is happening? What can we say about that? So using our scoring rubric, we describe what is happening in each of those partitions, and it's an iterative process. It's not a straightforward process where we say, at this point, they are not able to respond to questions. No, it's an iterative process where we look at the rubric, how the scoring was done, whether it was scored on 4 points, meaning that level 1, what does it mean? Level 2, what does it mean? Level 3, what does it mean? We bring it together. And I want to show you an example. The last slide. The next, that one. You can't be able to see. Yeah, so in this last slide is where we have the partitions. For example, if we made 7 partitions, in each of those partitions, using the rubric that was used for scoring, we describe, for example, asking questions about the problem. Our lowest level would be where learners are not able to ask questions which would identify the main points about the problem. So it makes reference to the question that I asked, but how it was scored. Our highest level would be learners asking questions that investigate causes and effects and query possible solutions for a given situation. Like that question that Samuel gave us, we would use the scoring of that question to be able to come up with categories of reporting for these young people. And this would be what we shall use to tell a story about proficiencies in problem solving, putting it together. The different sub-skills of problem solving, the one that you're seeing are only 2, asking questions about the problem and understanding the causes and effects of the problem. There are others that I have not put here, like implementing the solution. So we put it together and we tell a story about the young person in terms of problem solving in a qualitative way, being able to show what they are able to demonstrate or say or write or do in the questions that we have asked them. So in conclusion, which would already predict that it's important for us to measure and report on these proficiencies in terms of, to report on the skills, either generic skills or core competences, so that we are able to tell what our learners are able to do and be able to track the progress. And we have talked a lot about use of authentic and scenario-based tasks that require us to use real-life situations in terms of life, work, or school for the young persons to be able to find meaning in the question that has been, or the task that has been presented to them, and be able to demonstrate the skills that we want them to acquire. Issue of alignment, I won't mention so much, but you have seen even the first presentation was talking about alignment between the curriculum and assessment for us to be able to come up with authentic tasks. Call to action, institutionalize authentic assessments, integrate assessments within learning, and invest in capacity and scaling. I would like to stop there because time is running, and the presentations will be shared for all of us to read. Thank you very much.
They deserve a better club. Mr. Soso Jonathan. Mr. Soso Jonathan, please see me behind the tent. Behind the tent means next to my seat around here. So our next presenter is Professor Peter L. Baraza from Alupa University, PhD. Professor Baraza is a laureate of the ERA Award for Outstanding Mentor of Education Researchers in Africa 2018-2019, and a professor of education in the School of Education at Moi University. He holds a PhD in education from the University of Hull. He has contributed significantly to educational development in Kenya, including serving as a member of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform in Kenya, appointed by the President of the Republic of Kenya on 29 September 2022 to review the entire education system. Professor Baraza is the Dean School of Education, Moi University, and is currently Vice Chancellor, Alupa University, Busia, Kenya. He is published in the area of curriculum and instruction, education research, language education, applied linguistics, internalization of higher education and performing arts. He is a DAD alumnus and an Ors Award recipient, a Wingate Scholar, and Salbert Fellow, Shakespeare and the Globe. Akia Mungu. He has successfully supervised and graduated 90 Master of Education students and 38 PhD students, published 70 articles in referred journals, 25 book chapters, 2 books, and edited several books. Actually, when I grow up, I want to be like him. Can we all be upstanding and welcome Professor? Tafadhali msimame kukaribisha Professor.
Thank you, thank you. And he should have added that this morning the head of state mentioned that I was part of the student funding model in this country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm mollified. I do not think I'll live up to what has been described of me. On Monday, the CEO said I was his teacher. The CEO KICD also said I taught him. In your midst in NEC, I still have 2 persons whom I'm proud of that I taught. Dr. Rachel Mawia, please, if you may stand. That was also my student. In fact, one of the latest PhDs I had. I don't know whether Dr. Tobias Owiti is here. He was also my student. I don't see him here. I chose to be here over going to Naivasha because there's a national conference of education, the second one, because I think this is important. And it's so important because I see my good friend Subira Neema from KICD, who are with her in the Presidential Working Party on education reform. I see my friend here, Ann Ngatia, whom we worked with in the Presidential Working Party on education reform. And I've had the privilege of serving this country in these areas. I'm a little concerned that I don't know whether they have put up my presentation. Yeah, it is appearing there. Just leave the title only, Reimagining Authentic Scenario-Based Pedagogy and Assessment in Competence-Based Education. I'm a little concerned because as we speak, all the issues I should talk about have been defined. Questions have been asked. You have answered them. You have participated. And I see the trajectory being everything we have been doing is wrong. That's the trajectory I'm getting here. That the way we were taught, the way we learned, and all the people who are here, I did the East African examinations. Anybody from Uganda can come and ask me. That's what I did for A-levels. When our names used to appear, and the villagers would go and check in the papers whether your son has passed, and you'd be in trouble. I am seeing a sense of saying that the competence-based curriculum, or CBE, is all about a skill like problem solving and moving away from the understanding that knowing is critical. I'm seeing a situation where the definitions of education as presented here, even from the first day, are lacking. I'm not seeing an epistemology, a knowledge base on which all these things are based on. I'm seeing a situation where we are saying, I'm putting here a headline, I'm putting here a statement, and that statement speaks for what is happening in East Africa. And that is what we should go. And that's the way we should go. As an educator, I hasten to say that even if you want to tell the story must be anchored in some understanding of the theory of learning, understanding of what education stands for. And that's where we are finding it very hard. When somebody appears before you, they have the skill. They can solve all problems, but they don't know why they are solving those problems. They can tell you how to fix that item on the computer, in a phone, but when you want to have a serious conversation, they must go back to that phone to have the conversation with the phone and come back to you. So as we talk about authenticity, as we talk about, and I was shocked, somebody said 844 was knowledge-based. Please read. Read the commission that took us to 844. It was not knowledge-based alone. There's an aspect of, So let's get these facts right. The future of jobs without degrees is not practical. There's been a conversation with Dr. Igoki and Professor Okoth in one of the walls. And they are saying, how shall we produce PhDs without knowledge? Innovation is knowledge. So I'm a little scared that we are going without the realm of educational theory. And I'll give a good example with due respect. A question was posed to you that if you're learning how to drive, would you rather be given a car? Or would you rather be given an ABC question about traffic lights? If you give me a car without those ABC questions, I'll drive, but I'll crash through the traffic lights. So, we are here to be able to tell each other the truth. Because for me, where I sit, I'm part and parcel of the CB construction with KICD. I'm part and parcel of the assessment structures that we have with NEC. I still have problems explaining to villagers what meeting expectations are. Exceeding expectation. Because Okonkwo took his son, those who did things fall apart, to the farm and went with his son how to plant a seed and said, please plant here. When the boy did wrong, he was admonished. Eventually he said, now you have done it. Did the boy exceed expectation? Did he meet expectations? Did he go through the process that led to that expectation? Can we farm these terminology so that people can now trust the language of the results we are giving them? Here in Kenya, we are already having a problem describing the results of KGSEA. Wait until senior school arrives. I'm not here to deconstruct what everybody said. But I want to talk a little about that predicting model, which we had on Monday, where the predictors will tell you which career you will take. My nephew Tiang of NEC here, that's my nephew, will tell you that his children play musical instruments. And this man might be telling them he wants them to do STEM. But in CBE, we are saying nurturing every learner's potential. How are you going to predict against my desire vis-a-vis these other skills, my talent? We have schools with 2 areas, STEM and sports and creative arts. How are you going to tell this boy who is wonderful in physics and in chemistry and biology not to touch the piano, not to play football and be the best athlete for this country? Sorry to our brothers in Uganda, Kenya, for us running is for everybody. Even me, I can run. You have started running. You're just borrowing our nephews and nieces to run for you, but with good cheer. So I'm asking myself as we speak to these issues, we should be able to be broad enough to say there are things that we must acknowledge. We must help NEC think through the process of preparing proper assessment for learners. I also, for the chair, saw something very unique in my life. I've never seen a keynote split. For the first time at NEC, I saw a keynote speech being split between 2 people. Doesn't happen. Tradition is that a keynote is a keynote. So the keynote speaker cannot say, excuse me, allow me to bring another person. So for the future, let's bear such things in mind. I didn't want to say it aside. Our brothers and sisters will have gone without knowing that. Allow me then to say I am very sorry for preaching at you, distinguished guests, fellow educators, pastors in learning, ladies and gentlemen. It is true that the world we usher our learners into today is not the one we inherited. It's a little more complex, more unpredictable, but in many ways, our curricula, our pedagogies, our assessments still mirror the past. And we must change the assessment to mirror the present. We must acknowledge, like my predecessors who spoke here, that there's so much change, that AI is driving us, internet is driving us, but at the end of the day, without paraphrasing the words of the president of Tanzania, and without acknowledging the fact that she says people should be beaten up, she raises a fundamental question. Who are we? What are our values? So even in education, what are we asking? In terms of testing, you're asking me to problem solve what? What is this content? What is this knowledge? And we must situate ourselves into the curriculum and then ask ourselves, what is teaching and what is learning? I tell my student teachers this. If you walk into a classroom, the moment you reach the classroom, don't ask the question, what have I come to do? Do what you came to do. Then ask a question when you have left. What did I do? Then don't answer that question, what did I do? Ask the next question. Would I have liked to sit in that class and listen to that person who was talking to the students? If you don't believe that you should have sat in that class, you didn't teach. You wasted students' time. So the concept of teaching, the profound knowledge about teaching, is within and around the concept of assessment. Because teaching cannot begin when you don't know the level of your learners, when you have not assessed what you taught them last, when you have not found out what you have as building blocks. So you see, you begin already by assessing. In my class, whom do I have? I assessed my audience here. Whom do I have? Now, once I know whom I have, then I can begin to say, how will I teach? But when I want to say, how will I teach? I will be asking the wrong question. The question is, how will they learn? How will they learn? And we go back now what he was telling us. When he's doing the matrices in class and showing how to deal with batteries and so on, you're asking, how will they learn? And if you say you want to know how they will learn, then you must know if they have learned. So they're so intertwined in the sense that the scope of what I'm talking about as the theme for this thing makes it interesting to answer this question. Why are we here? Please let me have my slides now. I'll have to go to mine here, if you allow me. Okay. Why are we here? What would an assessment system look like if it were not designed entirely around learning? What would it look like if it were designed entirely around learning? It means we must change the curricula. We must change our lesson plans. We must change our schemes of work. How do we do this? I had an opportunity to visit a country with the intent of getting a job after my studies. What discouraged me was this. I was told, please prepare your schemes of work, prepare the syllabus that you'll give our students. Come with your own syllabus. I thought in Kenya we are given the syllabus, then you make schemes of work, and then you make lesson plans and you teach. I was told, no. Tell us what you are going to teach our students. Show us. So I asked a friend, what did you do? He said, no, just prepare a syllabus. You're a literature teacher. Prepare, walk there, and say, this is what I'll teach your students. But they asked, what will they achieve at the end? Then I said, they'll be able to speak English. I was told they are English speakers. You are in the UK, mind you. So, when we are saying, are we brave enough to fundamentally rethink assessment, or are we modifying old systems here? So we panel beat a little, and then we move on. And how can governments ensure assessment data actually informs policy and classroom practice? And that's where my problem is. Who is producing this data? Etiang, you are in NEC. Who is producing the NEC data? Because when the CS says that is not NEC data, it is one of the groups. That's what the CS said. So who is producing the data? Why are you collaborating with these good groups so that they can produce data together with you? So that the government can own that data. If they can't own that data on assessment, where do we begin? Kindly move on. Mine is, I'll move, you know that much. We have mastered the art of teaching learners what to know. That is true. But the real question is, can we help them, equip them to solve anything that truly matters? And to me, anything that truly matters includes the narratives of my grandmother. The narratives of my grandmother were not technology. My mother never went to school. She has 39 degrees in her home. God rest her soul in peace. But she told us narratives that carried quite a bit and solved problems. For us as young men, we had to have hats at 15. You built your own hat. And your aunties would be very keen to see if there is any female species getting into that hat. If there isn't, they'll say, my brother's son has a problem. But our mothers would tell us narratives that would tell you, bring another species in that home at this age, you'll have a problem. Sex education. So there is nothing lost. The world is defined by complexity and unpredictability. Our learners face challenges, but as it is, we must use both knowledge and something else. Our learners need capacity to navigate uncertainty, think critically, and apply what they learn to problems that matter. This morning, I was saddened to hear in the news the number of young girls who procure early abortions, and how many of them, in hundreds of thousands, that are suffering as a result of an exercise that society has placed before them without knowledge to handle the matter. These skills you are talking about are critical. Skills to analyze what you are going through are critical. But knowledge is fundamental. That is what they are lacking. Parents don't give knowledge. The curricula should give adequate knowledge. And also society should provide other means of knowledge. We need capacity to navigate uncertainty, to think critically, and apply what we learn to the problems that matter. Our current curricula, pedagogies, and assessments were designed for a world that no longer exists. And we must use education to transform what we do. Let's go to the 4 pillars for educational transformation. For me, I don't know whether it is my friend Ogle who said we should ask if the policy makers are thinking the way we are thinking, and then we go to institutions and so on. And I said, maybe what we are saying here is we should start the other way around. Where is the future-ready curriculum that is aligned with emerging competencies and the changing economy? That is where we must sit, the future-ready curriculum. And the future-ready curriculum is not a curriculum that is, if you wish to say, already farmed without any particular boundaries that can expand. The future ready should expand. Should expand to the extent that I should be able to get a PhD because of innovation. I shouldn't have to write a thesis to get a PhD. I should be able to innovate and change the society and be given a PhD. If I run and win a race, I get a gold medal. Then authentic learning, which my colleagues have explained very well, is grounded in real-world contexts and meaningful experiences. Now, was it important for me to learn the parts of an insect? You know, for us in Western Province and in Uganda, we have flying vegetables. The Ugandans eat ensenene. For us in Western Kenya, we eat chiswa. Those are flying vegetables, and we enjoy them. We have no question about it. So was it necessary for us to learn the parts? Yes. I must know which part to remove and which one to eat. So the applicability is what you should be asking, but not to say I should not know. I at times feel very sympathetic, and with due respect to my colleagues from the UK who gave me a scholarship for 7 years to study there. I knew the whole world, but my colleagues in class only knew UK and a bit of Wales, which is part of UK. That is what appeared to happen. And I felt so great that I knew all this. The question whether the knowledge was useful for me, I don't know. We can discuss that after this. Then competence-based assessment, measuring application and demonstrating capability. You see, when you measure application, education is better than money. That is not a simple debate. There are issues of value in that topic. Do not dismiss it. Education is better than money. That's why I'm standing here. I can now have the what? The money. But if I had taken the money, I would be probably a very rich and uneducated person sitting in Busia doing magendo across the border, selling everything, including illegal things. Education is better. I hope I still have a few minutes. So at the end of the day, we should be having inclusion, equitable access to transformative education. For me, when we talk about assessment, and people have asked these questions, why do we have less points for a girl joining the university? Why do we have certain programs for girls and so on? Trust me, if you are an African young man of my age, you know what your parent, a mother, went through. The space she occupied in the home, yet she did almost 3/4 of what kept your father alive. And you alive. You cannot deny the granddaughter that space. Equity for people with disability, who are abled differently, is very critical. And so assessment and anything else must pay attention to these aspects. Can we next slide, please? Now, there are 3 core principles here that guide educational transformation. And the first one is that assessment must emerge from pedagogy and can be part of pedagogy. It is not an add-on. It is designed with learning, not after it. The third principle is that learning must reflect real life, and we have underscored this, so that real contexts, challenges, and communities affect us. Subira, you know, parents complained that when junior school started, or CBE, our students were going home and saying, Mwalimu has said, give us an egg, another one a chicken, and they were asking, how many chicken does the teacher want? These teachers are simply eating. But if you had a science club, and you asked parents to give you 50 shillings each, and the students produced harmless paint that painted the cheek so that the hawk does not pick the cheek, the community will clap. because their chicks would be what? Would be safe. So we must find situations where the real contexts, the real challenges enable or engender good things in the community, and the community will say it is not expensive. I'm telling you, my father has many daughters. When you come, they all are not worth the same price. Trust me. They are not worth the same price. You'll come and they'll be told you this one. Bring 2 cows, let her go. Another one, you come, they say, let's call the grandmother. Let's call the aunt. They are just hyping the what? The cost. By the time they hand over the girl, the Kikuyus know. 99 goats plus 1, plus a tank of water, plus the sister who was doing what, plus what. So if you are going to think about assessment in the current education system, it cannot be cheap. I'm seeing a situation where people think it is a question of asking the learners, which skill do you have? Can you demonstrate the skill? And then they walk away. How will you distinguish between these two good people who have just completed a task? There must be a process of having portfolios, having things that have carried over. When they walk into a job market, they are saying, this is what I look like. And that is expensive. And the beauty of this can be if you, who are the educators, go back and tell people, this is what it means. If you don't, we shall start grappling, and like 844, we shall say, ni mbaya. Na ikiwa mbaya, tutafanya nini? Tutaenda wapi? The third one is competence is demonstrated through application. And we have said solve, apply, and let's show the value of what you are doing. So I'll not go to that. I'll come here, reimagining pedagogy. And this is where the expense is. It is learner-centered. You are co-creating learning goals and pathways. It means you're working with the learners, with the parents. The system keeps changing, improving, and being enhanced. It is authentic and relevant. It is collaborative and interdisciplinary. And that is where I have a problem with 60% STEM and then 25% humanities and 15% performing arts and sports. Supposing 60% of Kenyans go for sports and performing arts, what will the country do? Yes, we desire 60%. What have we put in terms of resources to engender our getting the 60% in that manner? Then it is full of inquiry and reflection. It is inclusive and equitable. I think you understand the challenge, you apply the knowledge, you create and solve meaningfully, you communicate, you reflect, and you improve. I think on the first day we talked about teachers must reflect. But the students, do they also reflect? If we don't give them assessment that leaves them also reflecting, then it's only the teacher who reflects and comes back again to start afresh, and the student has not reflected. I need to finish. I think my colleagues have dealt with this very well, that African indigenous education was always authentic, and it was taught through participation, not memorization. That's what it was: storytelling, communal learning, apprenticeship, initiation. It was rooted in our culture, grounded in the community, focused on life. Ask, where does AI come in here? You know, I resisted when I was preparing my presentation almost 20 times, trying to make my own slides. And I made them. I told the chair I have a different version of this presentation. But when I went to look at what AI could do for me, and the beauty of the images, and the reconstruction of my thought process, I began asking, why are you thinking for me? I can think. This is not what I want to say alone, but was insisting this is what you will say. So we must find room for our own voice. Otherwise, like you were saying, it will be ahead and we shall be chasing, and that's not what we are looking for. For scenario-based learning, we have also been told, I want to sit there, but I want to talk about this scenario versus authentic. It is not new, the scenario-based. Take any KMTC exam paper, Kenya Medical Training College. You'll see simulation is there. The questions asked there are about simulation. They are asked about imagined experiences in hospital. They are asked about future possibilities of how to treat a patient. They are used to anticipatory thinking. The doctors, medical laboratory scientist students in my university, they use problem-based approach to learning. So these are not new things to us. They should not sound very fresh. I think what we should do is to ask, can we prepare learners for meaningful action as a result of what we are doing? K, assessment. From testing recall to evidence competence. Colleagues, educators have an experience. When I was in college with Dr. Igoki here, my college mate, and others whom I were with, training as a teacher in a diploma teacher training college, I went into a classroom to do an exam. And there wasn't anything I could answer. And I asked myself, I have sat in class for this whole term. Is it possible that I didn't understand anything my teacher was teaching me? And I said, but I attended all the lessons. I knew all the topics. So I listed the topics, selected 3 topics, set my own questions, answered them, and passed my exam. And my teacher came to class. He was Briton. And he said, there is one student here who did what a student should do when they are in college. You are a teacher. You must set scenarios that you think apply to what you went through. And I set questions, and I passed in that exam. So why are we asking our students questions to a point where if they moved off they fall off the cliff? Are we giving them an opportunity to be able to think around the topic you have taught, around the experience they have had, around the practice they have gone through, around all the modeling they have done? You cannot take a pen and a paintbrush and tell an artist, draw this. You tell the artist what you think the concept is, and the artist will decide what is beautiful in their eye. And I think this is where we should be going, where competence development is a cycle. You understand the challenge, you apply the knowledge and skills, create and solve meaningfully, communicate, reflect, and then improve. And at the end of the day, you have a research report, you have a prototype, you have a presentation, a community feedback from the presentation, you reflect, and then you have an action plan. I think if we do this, then maybe we shall. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond formal exams, informal assessment is important. And it is true that some of the best assessment practices can be nationally scaled, or they can be seen from what is happening in some institutions. Education must not only inform minds, it must empower learners to transform the world. The future will not reward learners who simply know, but for what they can do with what they know. So do not take away what they know from what they can do. Knowledge, skills, values, competence, then impact will transform our East African countries. Thank you, and God bless you.
Haki ya Mungu. Wapi makofi? May God bless the professor. Etiang, now I know, Etiang, now I know where you get your grounded wisdom and tolerance. Now, 3 things for me. You know, he said he prepared his speech, and then Mambura and Mukami told him to do something about AI. He was resistant. He accepted. Two things emerged. He has demonstrated two elements of leadership. One, he was very adaptive to the situation. Two, he was very resilient to acquire the technical competence that was required to deliver within the context of AI. Thank you, sir. The other thing that has emerged, he is trained in the UK, and he has an award on Shakespeare and the Globe. I'm a pretender in literature and things literature. His thoughts are very, very provocative, very inspiring, and it can turn whatever you have upside down. But more importantly, he taught us the economics of daughters pricing. Yule wa ng'ombe, yule wa ngamia, yule wa dollars. And it's education that makes that segregation. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is our responsibility to glean insights from the lecture given by Professor. They are rooted in our traditions, they are rooted in our past journeys, the present challenges, and he has given us a strategic scenario to focus on in shaping a better future. What a better honor than to hand over to his cousin, Etienne. Nephew.
Thank you very much, Ogle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important that we have a musical break. I want to introduce students from Missions of Hope International, Mabatini Junior School. Please come to the stage. Now, I will talk a little about Missions of Hope International, Mabatini. It's located in Mathare sub-county. Mathare is a large informal settlement, and this school is one of our assessment hubs for junior school. And it's established there, supported fully by an organization called Missions of Hope International. And they tell me 80% of the more than 1,000 students are fully sponsored by that organization. About 20% parents pay some money. And it is a day school. The children are drawn from the informal settlement. They are performing a folk song from Abagusi community. It is a Kisi folk song. They will introduce, they tell us what it is about. Let's welcome Missions of Hope International, Mabatini from Mathare sub-county. India mbele, songa mbele kidogo, ya nyuma, line ya nyuma. Move fast. Please introduce it. Nana introduce. Do you have Nana introduce. Who's introducing? Yeah. Who's this?
Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, before you is Missions of Hope Mabatini Center, ready to present to you a Gusi folk song entitled Omomro Tenyo. Yes, Omomro Tenyo. This is a Gusi folk song sung to encourage people to protect their wealth. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate them again. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Ogle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let us appreciate them once again. So we are going to have a very short virtual presentation before we proceed for tea. So this virtual presentation will be done by Dr. Emmanuel Joseph. Dr. Emmanuel Joseph is the CEO, Council for the Indian School Certificate Examinations. Just bear with us. We understand the sugar levels are getting quite low, but it's a short presentation. Thank you. Karibuni.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can I go ahead? Am I audible to you? Or the Kenyan national examination council. Am I? Is my screen visible? The lifestyle of the people is changing very fast, and the aspiration of the people also changing very fast. Under such circumstances, the disruptive technologies have great impact in education, both in designing of the curriculum as well as delivery of the curriculum in the classroom as well as assessment of the children. So in all areas of school education, there is intervention of technology for enhancement of learning. So the future of education, the future belongs to those who learn more skills and combine them in creative ways. This is a famous quote of Robert Greene. So we need to prepare our children for the future. So the uncertain future, unknown future that is awaiting the present generation, the generation Alpha, and they need to be properly equipped to meet the challenges of the 21st century. So there is a report of the World Economic Forum Markets of Tomorrow report, it gives a lot of insight into the changing scenarios in job market. So the dynamic governments and purpose-driven business are shaping a new era of public-private partnership in the investment in new technologies. And these new technologies is going to change the entire job market as well as the lifestyle of people. So we need to bring technology to develop skills of our students in the present day classrooms. The COVID-19 pandemic also taught various lessons to us. As a result of COVID, almost 83% of the world population scaled themselves for remote work, and 84% population accelerate digitization and they started using digital device on a day-to-day life, and 50% have moved for automation. These are all data shared by World Economic Forum. Again, the human and machine race is happening everywhere. In 2020, the human involvement was to 67% and the machines were used at 33%, and which has been narrowed in 2025. The human intervention has only 53% and 47% is machine. So there is a race happening between the machines and the human. So as a result, how to use machines for improving the quality of life. So 50% of all employees will need reskilling. That is the statistics given by the World Economic Forum. So these are all highlighting the need for bringing change to the classroom transaction, the content that is taught in the classroom, and the assessment for measuring the effectiveness of learning. The future of work will be a race between education and technology. These are the words of President Marci of Argentina, who hosted the 2018 G20 competition. So we need to radically think the skills we need and transform how we teach people to learn and apply them throughout their career. Education and training are not keeping up with the pace. That is the saddest part. Particularly the South countries in the South zone, the developing countries, they need to invest heavily in transforming teaching, learning, and assessment that is happening in the classrooms of our educational institutions. So there is a consistent mission to transform the culture of education and organizations with a richer conception of human creativity and intelligence. This is the words of Sir Keen Robinson. So in the changing trends of education, what are the changing trends due to this fast-pacing automation and the influence of the artificial intelligence? So more digitized content, the institutions and the learners are asking for more digitized contents for better learning. The teachers are also asking for more resources. More collaborative, project-based and problem-based learning should happen. More online learning will happen, blended learning will happen. More personalized, self-paced and self-directed learning should happen, because children at the age of 12 to 14 or 12 to 18, all of them are more into self-learning. The teacher's role is becoming direction-driven teaching to facilitator. So lessons from the pandemic again, closing equity and technological gap. So in a way, pandemic helped us to narrow the gap between the technology and the humans, using technology for hybrid learning that engages students, responding to the social emotional wellness needs of faculty and students, planning for contingencies. These are all taught lessons learned from the pandemic, and which is helping us to enhance learning, to improve the quality of education and the quality of curriculum transaction that is happening in the classroom. So education has to shift from survival to blossoming of the human being. This is one of the Indian sages, Sadhguru stated. He's a great educationist. Young people will need a wide and adaptive set of skills to meet the changing expectations of society and to contribute to the creation of more productive, sustainable, and just society. So young people are looking for change. They are not any more interested in the traditional way of learning. They are looking for change. And that change is what we need to bring into the classroom. So what are the expectations of the young population? They want solid knowledge base and real world application, moving away from theory, content-based learning. What is being taught in the classroom and what is the use of those lessons in the real world scenario? Our youngsters are looking to understand that. One clear and organized presentation of material. In a very organized way, they are looking for curriculum transactions, want to be stimulated, active, and participatory. So one-way traffic will not anymore help. The teachers should equip and prepare to learn with the students and to improve with the students. They want participatory learning. They want to know why. How does this activity, reading, connect my future career? Why it is happening? For every activity, they are asking the question why, and we need to promote that. It will lead to innovation, research, and real understanding and real education. Want faculty to be enthusiastic, helpful, and engaged. And no more traditional approach is acceptable to our young children. They are looking for smart, dynamic, and upskilled teachers in the classroom. They want face-to-face contact, but accept boundaries. These are all expectations of our children in the 21st century. So, to respond to this changing need of our students, education leaders will need to think further into the future and implement ideas in a timely manner. We need to change our classrooms. We need to change our pedagogy. We need to change our curriculum. We need to connect learning with the skilling. So 21st century skilling should be part of our learning process. And to implement these kind of changes, are we ready? Are we ready for that? What kind of preparations are required in our system? What kind of upskilling is required in our system? What are the limitations and challenges we face? All needs minute evaluation and examination. Futuristic thinking, so imagining, envisioning, projecting, predicting what has not been realized. All sort of research needs to happen to support our learners. So futuristic thinkers have the ability to look back to the past events, to learn lessons from the past. And they will also learn lessons from today. And they will visualize all possibilities of tomorrow to give better life to the student community. So the Education 4.0 proposes cultivate human tech literacy resources in the fourth industrial revolution era. So in the context of intelligence, learner with the ability to understand, apply it creatively. They are also need emotional intelligence learners who could organize thoughts and feelings to build relationship with others. Social intelligence learner with the ability to establish good relationship and resolve conflict within the team. Physical intelligence learner who pursue and maintain their health and happiness. So cognitive, emotional, social, physical, all aspects of human being needs to be nurtured through the 21st century learning. And while learning, they should also develop skills like problem solving skills, collaboration skills, and adaptability skills. So these skills will make a human being more effective in the real life situation. So World Economic Forum again give a framework for schools of the future. Global citizenship skills, innovation and creativity skills, technology skills, interpersonal skills, personalized and self-paced learning skills, accessible and inclusive learning, problem-based collaborative learning, lifelong and student-driven learning. This is the way forward for all our educational institutions. So in the context of job disruption and increased polarization, education leaders have a critical role to play in preparing the global citizens and workforces for the future. Education models must adapt to equip children with the required skills to create more inclusive, cohesive, and productive world. So how Indian education is responding to these changing needs? I'm sure Kenya must be doing a lot, but let's understand what is the magnitude of the Indian education. So India has one of the largest school education system globally with 1.5 million schools under K-12 category. It serves more than 240 million students below the age of 15 years and employs more than 12 million teachers. There are 75 plus school boards in the country. Central government and state government or the provincial governments both have equal role in the running of the educational institutions. It's a huge country with 36 provinces and 22 official languages. It's too diverse, 30 plus other languages and more than 1,000 dialects. So bringing uniformity in such a diverse society is a very challenging task. And you see the scale, such a large number of educational institutions, large number of teachers, large number of student population, how to reach, how to provide quality education for all. That's why the government has come out with the National Education Policy 2020. Fundamentally, the policy is addressing the equity issues, excellence, inclusivity, accessibility, and accountability. So these are the 5 fundamental principles of the education policy. And through these principles, the policy is trying to address each issue that is creating hurdles in expanding education in the country. The 4 key focus areas of the national education policy are no hard separation between academic and skill subjects. And within academic subjects also, there's no hard separation. The child should be allowed to take subjects of his choice. Breadth and depth, the depth of the curriculum, the strength of the curriculum, the rigor and reach of the curriculum, that should be clearly defined so that clear understanding of the lessons learned, the concepts learned is available with the student. Choice and flexibility, again, freedom to choose subjects, choose language, everything is left to the learner. Reduce the content load, reducing the content to promote competency-based learning. And competency-based learning can only be achieved by connecting learning with the real-life scenario. So for this purpose, huge capacity building of teachers are required to revamp the curriculum transaction, revamp the assessment practices that is happening in the schools, reduce the exam pressure. We are aiming to reduce the pressure on children through rote learning. So rote learning is creating a lot of problem for the students. And they are simply mucking up things. They are not learning with a purpose. So we need to bring purpose to the learning. And at every level, the system as a whole need to ensure that the learners are achieving adequate desired outcome so that when they pass out from the school, they will become productive individuals to the society. They will be great thinkers, innovators, and contributors to the development of the society. So what India is doing, India is targeting to reform curriculum and bringing innovative pedagogy and competency-based education into the classroom and competency-based assessment. And these assessments are happening at multiple levels. At school level, school-based assessment, key stage assessment at examination boards. This includes assessment at every stage of the schooling, grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, and National Achievement Survey. It's a sample survey conducted across the country by the central government to understand the quality of the schooling happening across the country. Then, of course, the board examination conducted by multiple school boards across the country also serving as a barometer to measure the quality of the schooling that is happening. So teachers' capacity building is the next important area to enhance the learning, to improve the quality of teaching learning that is happening in the schools across the country. So our teachers are the products of rote learning. So how to bring the best out of the present category of teachers? So the country at the initial stage has made it mandatory that every teacher should undergo 50 hours of professional development in an academic year. And it could be minimum. It can be 100 hours, 200 hours, depending upon the situation and the interest of the teacher. But every teacher across the country should undergo for 50 hours of learning in the country. And the country has also come out with the national professional standards for teachers. So these professional standards is serving as a magna carta for the teachers for developing their skills and other attributes to provide efficient teaching learning in the classroom. Standard setting and accreditation of schools. So there could be efficient teachers, there could be good students, but if there is no enabling environment in the institution, nothing will become productive and successful. So to create enabling environment in every school, the standard setting and accreditation has also been introduced by the country. And it is done at the institutional level, school board level, and at state and national level. So in the 21st century is pedagogy, when the content is developed, how to transact this content. Here, without technology, efficient curriculum transaction will not happen. So enabling technologies, incorporating suitable technologies to transact the curriculum in the classroom, and also to develop collaboration between various stakeholders to achieve maximum outcome through minimum intervention. Teaching using project-based learning, incorporating suitable technologies and collaboration. These are all various interventions and applications that is happening in the schools across the country. Developing problem-solving technique with an interdisciplinary approach, real-world problems, encouraging reflections with a self-review, peer review, developing interdisciplinary approach, real-world problems again, assessing students with clear, transparent goals and objectives. Peer review is also simultaneously happening. The National Achievement Survey, the Key Stage Assessment, all these are examples of enhancing pedagogical practices. So the National Education Policy, again, focusing to address various issues, including attainment of 100% enrollment of students by 2030. Almost 90% enrollment has been ensured by the system, by the intervention of various governments. So central government and state governments are working very hard so that almost 85 to 90% enrollment has already happened. So the remaining children outside the school system should also be brought to the formal schooling. That is the challenge faced by the education sector. Then achievement of foundation literacy and numeracy, the basic reading skills and understanding skills, numerical skills. So once this basic literacy and numeracy is achieved, that will help the children to proceed further with excellence. So if this minimum level of foundational literacy and numeracy has not happened, that will affect the child's learning throughout his lifetime. So addressing this issue is one of the prime target of the government. So the education in India has been divided into 4 sectors now. Foundational year from age 3 to 8, then age 9 to 11. So it is a preparatory stage, classes 3, 4, 5. Then classes 12 to 40, that is age, the classes 6, 7, 8, then 9, 10, 11, 12. These are the division given by the National Education Policy, and accordingly, at every level, every child needs to achieve learning outcome. So moving away from rote learning, this is one of the fundamental objectives of the country as of now. So instead of mucking up of things, learning with a purpose, learning by acquiring the skills to apply the lessons learned in the real life scenario, and by transforming the assessments into competency-based assessment, the measurement of learning outcome is also measured in a grand way across the country. Promotion of multilingualism, as I told you, that India is a country with multiple languages and more than 22 official languages, more than 30 recognized languages, and more than 1,000 dialects. These are all showing the diversity of the country. So in such a diverse country, multilingualism needs to be promoted. And through multilingual education, the objectives of education is to be achieved. Skilling of students, it is becoming more and more important. Socio-emotional skilling and the real life skills, everything is important for the children. So skilling and actual vocational skills should also be learned by the children. So vocational skills are now part of the formal curriculum. Along with academic subject, the child should learn at least one vocational skill up to grade 10. Use of technology in education. So without technology, without support of this technology, the country like India cannot reach out to the last child and the last school. So for the purpose of development of curriculum transaction, for conducting assessment, for ensuring fairness of examination, for monitoring of the conduct of examination at every area, technology is very widely used. And after the examination, by using technology, data analysis and data interpretation is also happening. So feedback and feed forward, both are happening with the use of technology. Data-driven decision making. So National Achievement Survey that is happening at the national level, the data will throw light on the performance of students at various parts of the country. And key stage assessments will throw light on the students studying in an examination board or the state education system. What are their level of performance? And based on the data analysis and the data interpretation, interventions can happen at the right time. These are all low-stake assessments to support the education system. And these assessments are very widely used to promote learning. It is used both for identification of learning gaps and also for identifying the gifted students. This is also used for understanding the training needs of the teachers. Training need analysis also happening through this data generated through various assessments. Standard setting and accreditation. The entire schooling is divided into different domains, and performance of schools in each domain is evaluated both from internal sources as well as external sources. And these interventions are helping schools to improve their quality in terms of governance, administration, finance, infrastructure, teachers' capacity, teachers' qualification, effectiveness of teaching learning, the parental involvement, parental satisfaction, student satisfaction, academic outcome, all areas are measured through standard setting and accreditation. So I'm sharing a quote from Barack Obama. So he highlights the need to change. So all of us needs to change. Our system needs change. We need to bring that change to give better world to our children for meeting the 21st century challenges in future. So change will not come if we wait for the same. If we wait for some other person or some other time, we are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. It's a famous quote from Barack Obama. So we are the change. So let us work together to see the change that we would like to see it in the world. So these are my thoughts on this occasion of the third educational summit that is happening in Kenya. And I take this opportunity to once again thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts with you. Thank you. Over to you.
I hope he's still in the meeting. We can do another round of applause. Thank you so much.
We will say, I will mail it to you. I will mail it. Yeah. Is there any questions that I can answer? Otherwise, I will log out.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure whether I said that,
Appreciate
but that's still fine. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been sitting for quite some time, and we surely need a health break. So we are going to take a 20 minutes health break. It is 11:37. Let's assume it's 11:40. I can sneak in some 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. I can sneak in some 2 minutes. So we'll be here at, okay, we just come back at noon. We take a 20 minutes break, then we come back. Thank you so much. Enjoy your health break.
So please, we don't want to call you from your tea. Immediately you take your tea, please come back. Let's